And I'm not even talking about, issues related to Khao Pravihan and all that, which is all emotion and cannot be, properly explained in terms of economic rationale. So the reality is that these remain issues that realities that we need to deal with, and we can't rush things simply because there are still issues of this kind on people's minds.
Next question, please.
Peter Johnson, can you explain to us what the delay is on the property and asset tax? I mean, I thought you were very keen to push this one through. Now it sounds like it's going to be delayed until the next session. How come? Are there obstacles within the coalition to it, or what's the problem?
Okay.
Can I just follow up real quick? Another second question afterwards. In terms of distribution of income and the income gap, why doesn't Thailand consider looking into your wage level? I mean, China has, obviously, it's a big issue now. Their wages have come up 15%, 30% or something. Why isn't Thailand, you want to improve people's income? Why not lift the minimum wage? Why not get a better system for people who are working in all these electronical appliances and automotive industries that are pushing this country? Why not give them a better wage?
Okay. The first one is actually there's no delay, believe it or not, on the property tax. It just takes this long. We passed it through cabinet. It needs to go to the what's the term? The government legal advisor for vetting. Since it is quite a complicated piece of legislation, that they're taking longer than always than we want them to. It would then come back to cabinet with their amendments, and then the cabinet will table it. The government will table it for consideration in Parliament. So this is normal process. In Thailand, it takes, actually, it's not dissimilar to other parliamentary systems. It does take 1, 2, 3 years to pass a law, and so for the property tax so far, it's been about, I think, 6 months, maybe a little bit more since we tabled it to cabinet. So there's no delay. As to whether there's opposition to it, I'm sure there will be. It's not yet visible. It's not something that people can stand up and openly oppose. But I do expect that I will need to marshal substantial public support in order to provide protection, really, for this piece of legislation. But I believe it will make a significant difference. Let me tell you, for example, that right now, of all the taxes that the government collects, about 10% only comes from taxation of assets. About 90% is taxation of employment, and that's not really very fair. It just means that people, the people who are driving this economy are the people who are almost entirely bearing the burden of taxation, whereas those who are extremely wealthy but don't generate economic value out of that wealth are paying next to nothing. Another good example, which reflects on the unfairness of the distribution of property asset, is that we can draw a line, and we will draw a line in value terms, below which owners of property will be exempt from the property tax. And the line that the Minister of Finance has drawn as in our model will exempt something close to 90% of the population from having to pay property tax. And yet, we will only lose 10% of total tax revenue. You follow? Yeah. It means 10% owners of property will be paying 90% of the total potential property tax that is collectible in the country. Now that reflects a very unfair distribution. You talk about unfair distribution income, distribution of asset, even worse. And we believe that the introduction of property tax will force proper allocation of this very important resource, which is land, into better economic use, and it will force property and land onto the market, which will allow better access to this most critical of assets. So we want to do that. Now on the minimum wage, I think along the same line as you. When I read about Foxconn in China, and I saw that after a series of protests, the owners were able to double the wages being paid to their employees, it made me think, wow, they could afford to do it. I mean, they wouldn't do it if they couldn't afford to do it. And the fact that they could do it overnight made me wonder whether every argument that we always receive from employers group that the minimum wage at current levels is necessary in order for us to retain our competitiveness might just not be the entire truth. But I'm not willing to jump to conclusions on this. I also mentioned to the Prime Minister that in order to enhance our competitiveness, we will need to look at potentially restructuring our main taxes, the main taxes being corporate income tax, personal income tax, and VAT, which implies a potential reduction in corporate income tax. But if we were to think of doing that, then quid pro quo might be an agreed target in terms of an increase in the minimum wage. So it's something that we're looking at, and once we get all the facts, we'll be able to make the appropriate decision. Thank you. Please.
My name is Mr. Dugar. I am economic advisor in this Asian region. I have a few questions on economic aspect from your speech. You have done good work regarding regional operating headquarters. Congratulations to you to increase the competitiveness of this country. You have got the award. Congratulations again. We have some fear of reimposing the capital controls by Bank of Thailand. This is my first question. Second is, when we expect that emergency can be removed. Third question is, property tax, you have given some exemptions to the small people, to the big people. You say the coverage is only 10%. We hope that it should be more. 10% is not the right picture to present the exemption. So can you remove all the exemptions and cover all at par? Thirdly, number 4 is freebies. You expect the election very nearby. If you give the freebies to any sector, the election commission will think otherwise. And economically also, I have the point that sustainability should be gained by the government. Anything you give, make it self-supporting, like the Banjakit Park. Anything you make it self-sustaining. You give some aid to the poor farmers only, but there are workers, those are also poor. Look for the economic level of the people. So the freebies are not good. I give you example of the
Can you wrap it up so we can answer the first three that you gave? Thanks.
Regarding the land also, land is limited and you are exporter of the food to the countries, big giants like China, India, or another country in Africa. You should also suggest some good ways how to increase the yield of the land or the crop to make that we should continue to export in a big way in the world market.
Okay, sir.
And we hope that you will achieve some good results more and more. Thank you.
What was the first question?
Honestly, I forget. But how about you just
I dare not ask
pick one
for him to repeat. But I'll come to me. Sustainability of policy and the giving away of freebies. I agree with you. There was one freebie that the government did give back in March last year. That was when we issued about 9 million checks of 2,000 baht each to everybody who was earning less than 15,000 baht a month. That wasn't done with the objective of addressing the income inequality issue. That was done with the objective of providing short-term stimulus to the economy. And the best way we thought that the economy should be stimulated would be a direct injection of funds into the hands of those most likely to turn around and spend that money. And actually it worked. Had we spent that money through other ways, i.e. investment projects, it simply would have taken too long for that money to return into the system. But that pretty much was the main cash freebie that we gave. Even the income guarantee scheme is one that is designed to help stimulate farmers into being more productive. What we found after the first year of the provision of the income guarantee is that farmers have increased the level of yield of their crop per rai, simply because they know they can make a reasonable return from their efforts. So there are some side benefits to that. At a macro level, I like to say this, that over the past 12 months, we have, the government has borrowed equivalent to about a rise in about 8% of total national debt in 1 year. But national debt as measured against GDP over the same period rose by less than 0.5%. So what that means is that the base, i.e. the GDP itself, has kept up with the increased level of national debt. So from a macro level, it is very sustainable. In fact, I could say we could borrow at that level forever if we can continue to generate the same rate of growth to make sure that the debt level doesn't increase as a percentage of the total economy. Of course, we won't be able to do that. But it's reflecting upon the fact that for Thailand, at any rate, the fiscal stimulus that we embarked upon for the past year and a half hasn't actually led to a deterioration of our fiscal sustainability at all. The debt against GDP level over the past 12 months has remained the same at about 42% to GDP. Thank you. I'm sure I haven't answered all your questions. Not on the agenda. Yeah. I haven't even heard the Bank of Thailand talk about it. Not that I would necessarily, of course.
Next question, please.